start. Okay. So this video is looking at the principle of design of contrast. Contrast is the opposite of elements in an artwork. Examples include value contrast, color contrast, size contrast, and texture contrast. And we're going to look at all those today. Our first one is value contrast. Your dark darks versus your light lights. Even going to the extreme of your black versus your white. So value contrast can really catch the viewer's eye. If you have a really light area, like this one, we have the light source coming in from the window into a very dark room. Our next example is color contrast. And color contrast is when you have a pair of colors that are across from each other on the color wheel, and those are called complementary pairs. And our main pairs are red and green, yellow and purple, blue and orange. So this oil painting is a really good example of color contrast using the pair red and green. So you have the red plate, the background, with the green limes sitting on it. And you also have a strong light source with some shadows casted onto the plate. Next is size contrast. So size contrast is dealing with like small versus large. So here we have some small and medium circles compared to a really large one. And of course, the large one has all the emphasis. That's what we notice first. So our artwork example is obviously not totally realistic, but it's a really good example. It also includes like proportion and scale. So we have an average sized man in a field with this huge chick. And obviously this catches our eyes and makes us think a little bit. Our last example is the texture contrast. So a texture, you could have something like small versus rough, or shiny versus matte, or even something like sand versus grass. The still life is a really good example with some texture contrast throughout it. So the background is kind of matte compared to the very shiny bowl. And the bowl is even reflective, so it kind of catches our eye. And then it's sitting on a very kind of smooth cloth, and that cloth is contrasted to the wood grain of the table.